It's time for Pod of the Dead. Join us!
Hello and welcome to Pod of the Dead. I am your host Nicholas, and with me as always are the ladies Stephanie and Natasha.
Hello.
On today's episode, we are covering the 2023 existential, psychological, psychotropic horror film Infinity Pool.
Yeah.
Coming into today's homework and stuff, what is your history, or why did we watch this? Or because this is the last pick. This is Well, no, seriously though. Like, this is the last pick for no unsolicited Nick pick March. So this was a Tasha pick. So I guess we'll start with Tasha. Why did you pick this film?
I have seen this once before, or probably around when it came out, and I liked the vibe it gave. It's different. So I have a history with this movie, and I thought, with what we've been watching or just in general, I wanted to expose you guys to it to see what you thought.
Okay. Steph?
I don't know shit. So I didn't even hear the movie before this, and then we watched it, and we had talked about it. I knew Alexander Skarsgård and Mia Goth were in it, but that was the extent. I didn't know anything else about this movie in any capacity, so I went in completely blind.
Yeah, my history, like, I still own it. I didn't get rid of it. Owned the film prior to watching it for homework. I had seen his previous film, Possessor, so I knew that I was in for a very strange, like, surreal nightmare, because that's kind of how that film is in a way. So I knew it wasn't going to just be like, fucking Alexander Skarsgård and Mia Goth in a slasher. And I also knew that the director, Brandon Cronenberg, comes from very weird stock. His father, David Cronenberg, is the director of films such as The Fly remake in the 80s, the Videodrome with James Woods, fucking all sorts of like really weird fucking horror films, like legitimate, like weird, uncomfortable body horror. And this movie definitely, like, you could see that the apple didn't fall far from the tree with that just uncomfortability and stuff. But yeah, I knew nothing about this film other than the trailer and the pedigree that came with it, in that sense, just like who was in it and who directed it. But yeah, this was for lack of a better term, this was a trip.
Yeah. Could you explain a little bit more about what body horror is?
Body horror, from what I understand, is there are think pieces on this and stuff.
Oh, okay.
But
okay.
body horror deals with the grotesquities, however you want to say it, grotesqueries of the flesh and stuff. So when you're talking about like what it is to be human, or a person, or the human identity and stuff like that, the weird evolution of flesh in some films and stuff like that, it's the horror of the body. So like stuff like The Fly is about like a man accidentally crossing his genes with a fly, and his body starts to mutate. So there's that kind of stuff. So not saying that this is a body horror film, but there's that similar, like, uncomfortable nature that usually comes with body horror, which his father is like the god of, in a sense. Like, they literally say with a lot of body horror stuff, it's like, oh, Cronenbergian. Like, that's like a phrase that is thrown out there. Just kind of like what's his fucking name? Oh my god, I'm gonna lose my cred card. He it doesn't fucking matter. Anyway, but like there are so many, Kevin Smith like has a very specific style and like everything. So like that Cronenberg is kind of that way. So this is his son and this is his third film and it's fucking nuts. Legitimately nuts. I had to look up the ending of the film after we watched it to fully I knew what I saw, but I didn't know what was intended, or I was actually kind of interested to see what other people thought. So that was kind of interesting. But this film came out literally last year. What do you think its budget was?
I'm gonna say budget 3.5 million.
Okay.
I was gonna go with 4.
4? You girls are really honing in. 4.5.
Yes!
We actually did good. Yay!
Ballpark. I'll take ballpark.
Yeah.
Ballpark Franks.
Yeah.
But so this came out, like I said, 2023. When it comes to horror films, it came out in a year that like horror is like coming back hard. So last year, for 2023, it didn't make the top 10 for horror films, but that's because there was an absolute insane amount of films that came out. So you had Five Nights at Freddy's, Scream 6, Megan, The Nun 2, Insidious the Red Door, Evil Dead Rise, The Exorcist Believer, Saw 10, Talk to Me, Boogeyman. That's your top 10. And like it just keeps going. Thanksgiving, The Pope's Exorcist, The Blackening, The Voyage of the Demeter. And then Infinity Pool comes in right around in there. So horror is making money. Okay. Five Nights at Freddy's, for instance, made $137.2 million at the box office as the number one spot. So on its $4.5 million budget, what do you feel that this this is not a, what's the way to put it? This is not a popcorn, hey, let's just go watch a movie and like have fun movie. This is not
it's not fun.
It's not this at all.
Even though I laughed hysterically during a scene. And
you really did.
Like I was like in tears laughing.
Oh wow.
Later to find out, this movie is supposed to be funny at times. So I felt a lot better that I wasn't just laughing. But so on its $4.5 million budget, what do you think it ended up raking in at the box office?
12
million?
Decisions. 7.
It barely made its money back. In its budget, it made $5 million. So it actually probably lost money in the sense of like, But it still has gotten like a lot of people are like stoked on this. They like Brandon Cronenberg is definitely like somebody that people get excited about his stuff because it's so different. Whether that's good or bad is up for interpretation and opinion by the viewer. But as it stands for this time, like nowadays, he is like, whether you like the film or not, you can't say that it visually reminds you of anything else coming out right now.
No. Yeah. There are some there's some feelings in this that reminds me of a couple TV series that I've watched. It gives you that same kind of unsettled feeling throughout. Have you ever seen White Lotus?
No, you've told me about it though.
Okay. This has the same kind of vibe as the White Lotus. And then there's another one called Devs that was on Hulu.
Okay, I've heard of
same, Devs. Like you don't really know what's happening, but something's not right, just like in the air the whole time. And then it kind of shifts and goes crazy. Yeah. So if you like either of those, then this movie would be up their alley.
And this movie was actually originally rated NC-17 when it went to Sundance, because what we watched was even a cut down version, because the graphic violence and sexual content in it is actually amplified a little bit more, to the point
In the
where
original?
in the original one that was like aired and stuff at Sundance, to the point where, not to give anything away, but there is a certain scene where a penis is a very early scene. So we'll just say that you girls on the beach, that there is in the uncut version there, it's not the actor's penis, it's a prosthetic penis, but the scene is actually enacted.
Oh, wow.
So like, yeah, so that
need to be.
I mean, like, it depends. That scene itself is like kind of shocking when it's like, oh shit, this is happening. But then to like literally ratchet it to its zenith at that point, like, would be like, what the fuck? Because everything up until that point in the movie is just kind of like, all right, what am I watching? And then outside of the music, holy shit, it can be like the most serene landscapes and stuff. And I love the soundtrack in this, and it's just nonstop ominous, just. So, but yeah, yeah. So this movie,
maybe that's part of like how the vibe like just is that unsettling feeling throughout. Because I honestly can't remember the music, but I remember the feeling the movie gave me, and I bet it has something to do with that.
The things in this movie that stick out to me, is not necessarily the story or anything like that. The thing, it's the visual presentation that you're given, not even just in the psychedelic scenes, but just there. I stopped the movie pretty early on and asked Steph because the way some of the shots are framed are very uncomfortable, and it's just because it's like your brain knows whether you're into film or not, you're just kind of used to, like, if someone's on the right side of the screen, they're usually talking left, and that's where the emptiness will sit. But they turn it so like their face is at the edge of the screen as they're talking to someone, and there's a lot of emptiness behind them. And it's not one of those things that it's like it happened once and it's just like, oh, maybe it was just that weird shot. They do it so much that it has to be very like purposeful. Like those shots were very important, I guess. And also with like the early like swirling camera shots and stuff, making you feel very disoriented. And like I said, the psychedelic stuff is crazy. I've got a lot on that when we get past spoiler territory and stuff. But and I've also got like how he came up with this movie. But again, that'll be in spoiler territory because it's insane how closely this film is to an actual real life vacation experience that he had. So yeah, so it's very, very strange. But yeah, like we're starting to get a lot of Mia Goth in our films. Between X and this, we've got Pearl on the docket for later this year. Maxine's going to come out. So as far as I can tell, she I think she's a podcast favorite when it comes to horror movies and stuff. Like, she acted the absolute shit out of this movie.
She did.
I think Mia Goth has kind of the same role in every movie she plays too.
Unhinged lady.
Yeah,
like in the actress, because like the last two movies we've watched with her, she's been an actress.
Yeah,
but yeah, Unhinged, very dominant. It seems like they're typecasting her.
Well, and it's one of those things.
I hope it doesn't stay that way.
Well,
she does it well.
Is it like that? Deep down, that is what she actually is. Because I've seen her like in interviews and stuff, and she's just real sweet and soft and just like, oh yes, making the film was a lot of fun and all this stuff. And you're just like, oh, okay, that's nice. And then she's just, James!
Yes! Oh, man.
But yeah, and Alexander Skarsgård, he did a good job. But I think the big thing for his character in it, like I was talking to Steph about this last night, is because she was saying how Mia Goth like outacted him in the film.
Yeah.
Which is true, but at the same time, I think that Alexander Skarsgård is supposed to be like our proxy.
Yeah.
Like, you are living through this film with him and stuff. So, like, if he were to be as overly dramatic as, say, Mia Goth is in this film, I don't think it would work. His like refrain from being up here and stuff makes hers even more manic.
Yeah. And I think just as characters, she's the one like seducing and driving Skarsgård's character too, where like his personality is just like the follower, the kind of washed up, the weaker guy. So I think that's why he got picked to be a part of this.
Oh, 100%. And like, he so badly though wants like
approval
of so much. So but yeah, like when Brandon Cronenberg was asked about the setting of the film, said the setting is used in no small part to talk about the ways human psychology can mutate and animalistic violence can resurface in the context of not having responsibilities.
Okay.
So this contained almost a Disneyland mirror of reality that's contained in a bubble of a resort setting is very weird and grotesque to me. It's really like you're not visiting a country. You're visiting an alternate dimension across the country or a tourist nation across the world. And that's what I was kind of saying last night, was just like the idea of these like resorts in foreign countries that are in like destitution and stuff like that really sickened me, because like they buy up this property for cheap. They build up a bunch of stuff. They get all these rich people to come and stuff, but they do nothing for the area.
Yeah.
And they kind of touch on that a little bit at the beginning. But yeah, it's crazy.
I like I like that it's set in a fictional country. That adds to that like surrealism feel to it, I think, also, because it seems like it's set in like native Australia or something like that, but then that doesn't tie to like the peoples and then like the language. And it's actually shot in Croatia, which I thought was cool. So it has like Eastern European feel. It's like you can't tell where it is, which is really cool.
And that was intentional because he said with the technology that is implemented in this movie and stuff, it was just like, it was easier to just make it some no-name bullshit, like fake place, to just like not be like, well, hold on, how does Argentina or how does, you know, whatever country, how do they have this? It's just like, it doesn't matter. That's right. That's not what we're here to worry about. Because with what's already going on in this film and stuff, that's the least of our worries when it comes when it comes to focusing on detail.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a movie club. if you didn't know that, if this is your first, Tasha,
I'm still here.
Okay. If this is your first time listening to us, welcome. You picked quite an episode. But how this works is we have homework. We do a little light overview at the beginning of the episode. Then we go into spoiler territory and openly talk about the film. The last 10-15 minutes of the episode, we will be giving out homework for next week's episode, so you can watch the film with us. So when you come back to the next episode, there will be no spoilers for you, in the sense that you've already watched the film, and maybe it will give you a different viewpoint on it. Maybe you love the film, we hated it. Maybe you hated the film, we loved it. And it just kind of opens up that discussion. So before all of that, is there anything that you girls got into or wanted to champion for our listeners at home or wherever the hell they are?
Champion for this week.
I'll let you girls think. I've got some stuff.
Okay.
So in the past week, I have read 3 books. So that's really rare for me. So I finished the first Dune book. I then went on to the second Dune book, Dune Messiah, finished that.
Damn.
I'm definitely late to the party. I know, it's been around since the 60s. It's not new. But if you like the movies and stuff, I highly suggest checking out the books. They are a very dense read. I did the audiobook format, and that made it a lot easier for me to get through them because, like I said, they are very dense books. And then I also went on and finally listened to the book Rabbits by Terry Miles, which the book was interesting. I imagine people that aren't familiar with Terry Miles' previous works would like it more because it's like a mystery kind of multi-dimensional kind of book. That's all I can really tell you about it.
Okay.
The reason I say, though, that if you aren't familiar with Terry Miles, I think you would like it more is because he has run podcasts in the past that are like, what are they called? ARGs, alternate reality game kind of things.
Okay.
So the podcasts that he's done are like The Black Tapes, Tanis, The Last Movie. He also did a podcast called Rabbits. They are like audio dramas almost that are like dark conspiracy mysteries that aren't real.
Good.
They aren't real, but they're posed as if they're real.
Okay.
I highly suggest if that interests you at all, you start with The Black Tapes. That's the one you start with because all the other ones branch off of each other. So there's The Black Tapes, and then a character from The Black Tapes is in Tanis, and then characters from Tanis are in The Last Movie. It's one of those kind of things. But if that's something, make sure that you listen to our episode every week, but then go on and you can listen to like 5 seasons of Tanis and like 3 seasons of The Black Tapes.
Cool.
And stuff. Those are like yearly listens for me. I always come back and we'll start those over because they're like comfort listens in a way. But yeah, I checked out his book. It's good. Like, I think it could have been cut down a little bit. But if you're not familiar with his podcast stuff and everything, I think that the book's better. It was just that there were certain things I was like, oh, you've done that in that podcast. Like there was like certain tropes that I noticed. I was just hoping for more originality, which I get. I mean, it's not like he was copying somebody else's work or anything like that. It was just, it was just like, I've read that.
The book's always better.
Yeah. So there you go. Rabbits, Dune Messiah. I don't think I really watched any extra TV or movies. Oh no, I restarted watching the Mission Impossible series from the first movie.
Why?
Because I like those movies for some reason.
Do you?
Yep, I've grown up with them, and I haven't seen the newest one, so I was like, I'm going to rewatch all of them. And man,
I did not know that.
That first one did not age well with its CGI, but it's still like like it like people like Fast and the Furious. It's just over the top, and it is what it is. Like.
You know what you're watching and you're here for it.
Yeah, it doesn't need to make sense. It's just whatever.
Okay.
All right, so that's my
Didn't know that about you. What you were talking about with rabbits reminded me. So if you're into that, like multiple universe, time travel-y type sci-fi mystery, there's a book called Dark Matter by Blake Crouch.
I've heard of it.
You might want to check that one out. I have the hard copy, but if you're into audiobooks, I'm sure they have it. But it is really good. And it's kind of scary based on like how they talk about the expanse of the universe. It's one of those types of books.
Yeah, I know that you really like him because we've talked about that before. The only book I have read one of his books, and in the words of Steph, it was DNF'd. I did not finish it. And it's called Abandon. And I found it basically because I was looking for a book or books that felt like Silent Hill. And I was like, I kind of want... So that book was suggested, and I'd gotten into it and everything, and it was just... It was very 2 timelines at the same time, back and forth. And there was one timeline that I liked, the other timeline I didn't care for, and I just kind of got wore out on it.
Gotcha. Have you read the Pine series?
I've heard of it. They did the television series, Wayward Pines.
Television series sucks.
Well, I'm saying, but it's based on it, right?
Yeah, it's based on it. I think that series is all 3 books in one series, which is a terrible idea. Okay. But that has that Silent Hill-esque kind of town with monsters vibe. Okay,
I like that.
So I have those also if you ever want to read a hard copy.
I'm illiterate, so no.
I loved all that series. That it's a trilogy, and Dark Matter is one of my favorite books in general.
Oh, cool.
So I guess those will be what I champion this week. I had a pretty humdrum week. I can't really think of anything exciting that I did. If you're into like hour-long news series, Anderson Cooper has one out called The Whole Story, which is really cool. I've been watching a lot of that.
What's it about?
Each episode is different. I watched one about like what whales tell us. So it's all about like whales and whale songs and conservation. Earlier, I was watching one about super yachts and the super rich. So it kind of goes everywhere, but they're all really good.
Well, that's really touching on our episode today.
Yeah, exactly. There's one about the migrant trek from like Peru to the States and how that goes. It's all over the place, but they're all really, really good.
Cool.
So I guess it's all like that.
What do you watch that on? Because like is it just on cable?
Max.
Is that Max? Okay. I wasn't sure. Max. I wasn't sure if it was collected somewhere on like a streaming service.
Yeah, I think it's on CNN regularly.
That's what I knew Anderson Cooper from. So that's why I was like, so where the hell are you watching this?
So I've just been, there's 2 seasons and I've kind of been binging it, kind of bouncing around, but they're really good. Yeah. So it's called The Whole Story.
Cool. Okay. All right, Steph, any tentacles in our future?
Not technically tentacles today, but I was trying to think of something like this week. I'm kind of like Tasha. Like my week has just been a lot of me writing, so I haven't really done a whole lot other than spend a lot of time on TikTok just doom scrolling because I'm bored. But I did read a couple books, and one of them's not finished yet, so I can't talk about that. But the other one I read is Ruby Dixon. So if you guys, it's called Bad Guys. It's in Kindle Unlimited. It is in the same vein of like monster-esque, but this is aliens. And for those who have probably heard of Ruby Dixon before, she's the one who wrote the Ice Planet Barbarians, and that's a series of a bunch of blue aliens who have 2 appendages, and they live on an ice planet, and these humans get basically accidentally crash course to this planet, and then they have to learn to survive with these big giant blue aliens. So it is a very popular book series. It actually got a lot of like, it was like probably out at least 10 years before it ever even got boosted like crazily, like in the mainstream. So like I read them when they first got released, and then now everybody's getting on the bandwagon. But she has a book called Bad Guys that came out, and she writes usually alien related stuff. And this guy in this book he's a splice. So he is a mixture of a bunch of different aliens. They're using him for underground fighting, and he doesn't actually get to do a whole lot of that in this storyline, but it's interesting. It was an interesting storyline, the captivity thing, the, being a slave, he falls in love with a human slave in this book, and and he's also a clone. So that was interesting. And it was cute. It wasn't the best book I've read. It was too clean for me. Like I always complain about that about movies and about books. Like if they end too cleanly and that's not necessary, I get frustrated with it. And this book was just way too cute and wrapped up. And I was just like, nah.
Well,
but it was cute. So
you didn't really get that in this movie. Where it's
I mean, kind of. No, that's not true though. It was a lot more cleanly wrapped up than I expected.
I don't know. Like, we'll get into it.
Yeah. But this book definitely was just like, and they ran off into the sunset and lived happily ever after. And I was just like, what?
And then the sun killed them.
Yeah.
Oh no, left turn.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I can't think of anything else. Like like Nick said, like we watched the Mission Impossible Mission Impossible this week. I watched it with him partially, but like, I can't think other than listening to like Noelle in the basement out playing Silent Hill, the new video game.
Oh, that's right. How did I fucking forget about that?
I don't know. You're a loser. That's why.
What's that?
I said you're a loser, honey.
Oh, yeah.
That's why you forgot. No.
That's why.
Yeah.
No, I forgot about that. So we had like all the tornadoes and stuff coming at us.
Oh, yeah, we
everything.
did. That's why our life was humdrum this week.
Yeah. We were just traumatized by that. We
tornadoes.
Don't remember anything
Forget everything before then.
Yeah. So we all lived down in the basement for an evening. And it was just Noelle, Sydney, and Wesley, and the 2 of us. And they're playing some games and stuff like that, like some like board game kind of stuff and everything. They're kind of getting bored. Wes is like, can we play something on the PlayStation? So I'm like, yeah, but I was like trying to think of something that I had that would be entertaining for the people that aren't even playing it. So I was going through and I forgot that I had downloaded Silent Hill: The Short Message, which is free on the PlayStation Network. And it's like a 2.5 hour short horror game, but they basically released it in preparation that they're doing the Silent Hill 2 remake that's supposed to come out this spring, I think, to get people like, hey, you probably haven't played a Silent Hill game because there hasn't been one in like over a decade. So this was their first iteration of this, and these fucking kids were jumping off the couches, screaming at times.
Screaming. Yes.
So
that's great.
So basically how we ended up playing it was like Sid and Wes would like hang out with me, like just sitting with me and stuff. Noelle would play like the more mystery sections, and then there's a lot of like chasing, like getting chased. When that would happen, she would just hand the controller over to me and I would play through that. And there's a lot of fucking jump scares in those chase scenes. So you're like trying to get through like these maze areas and stuff. And there's like this creature that's like made of like cherry blossoms, and it's all fucking gnarly, and it's like floating around real jaggedy and everything coming at you. So like you just like open a door and that motherfucker would be right there. And Noelle, I swear to God, was an inch away from flipping off the back of the couch. She jumped off the couch so hard.
That's great.
We were all laughing, having a good time. But yeah, if you're a Silent Hill purist, I know some people are kind of butthurt about this game. I grew up on Silent Hill and I thought it was good. Like,
cool.
For being free and it's only 2.5 hours.
The kids liked it, so.
Yep, it checks a lot of those boxes. You can't complain for something. You can't complain when it's free. It'd be different, I guess, if you paid, like $10-$20 for a 2.5 hour experience, but it does a good job. It adds the creepy. The kids were legitimately just creeped out because it takes place like in an abandoned apartment complex that people have committed suicide in a lot and all this stuff. So it's a very heavy film or very heavy game.
And there's like writing all over the walls that they have to like, it's like a mystery thing. So they're like going through, they're having to read all this. And so like Sid and Wes, even though they weren't necessarily playing the game, they were like in it because they were like, what's that? Whoa, we got to look at that. And so like they were really into that.
It was a complete communal play. Like if someone saw something on the screen, it's like, look over there. What's that? So then Noelle would walk over there and everybody would, okay, what about this? They're all just like, I think this is what's going on. And I think this is what's going on. So it was a good time. And then Sid and Wes ended up going back to their moms for the week. And she was watching Wes and her younger stepsister. And she sent me a picture. She's like, I'm babysitting and got bored. And she downloaded it. So she's getting ready to play it on her own. So I'm waiting to hear back about how she peed her pants.
That's great.
But yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, this week's been
tornadoes. Video games. Yep.
But all right, we are going to get into spoiler territory. So this is your warning. If you've not watched Infinity Pool, we try not to do this very often with our movies that we pick. This is one though that, like, realistically, I think the only way you can watch it outside of renting it is if you have Showtime or a physical copy. So this isn't like
or Prime probably for renting it. Yeah,
you can watch it on Hulu with commercials.
Oh, it's on Hulu now?
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I did not know that.
Okay,
last I knew it wasn't. If it had commercials, I wouldn't want to watch this with commercials personally because it removes you from the fucking nightmare fuel. And I say nightmare fuel in the sense of like legitimate nightmare because it's very dreamy. It's very hard for me to like make sense of this in reality.
Well, I have the free version of Hulu, so I bet if you have the paid version of Hulu, you would watch it without commercials. Right on. Either way, it's on a streaming service.
Yep. Okay, that's better. All right. But yeah, so we watched it on Blu-ray down in the basement because I wasn't aware of that. I looked it up on, like I always check on Google, and it just said like Hulu with subscription, and usually that means that it's like only through Showtime.
Oh, gotcha.
So I was just like, yep, nope, it's not on Hulu. It's on Hulu. whatever. Anyway, Anyway, spoiler territory. If you don't want this movie ruined, come back to the last 10 minutes or so of the episode, and we will tell you what we're going to watch next week, getting out of no unsolicited Nick Pick March. But
I know, I'm so sad. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I'm glad Tasha's not able to put us through the fucking ringer again. So, she picked Hereditary. Fucking, I was re-listening to her podcast, and I was like, I'm reliving this. I'm shutting this off. I listened to half of it, and I was like, I can't do this. So, and then and in this movie, she warned us that it might be heavy, and it is heavy. It's in a different way though. It is, but it's definitely those two movies of this month have been. Killer Clowns. Yeah, that's not heavy. So that was a good palate cleanser.
It's a good buffer.
Yeah.
But no, that is something that I didn't really expect with the films that Tasha brought to the table and stuff.
I know.
I really didn't expect them to be and you're going to feel bad. I was shit. Right on.
I know.
That's what I like in movies is
to feel bad.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be gory, but if it can make me feel gross, that's a good movie. Okay. Yeah, I'm in it for the emotional component.
Right on. Well, if any,
it's weird because we went from a Mike Flanagan situation here, in the beginning. Tasha's let's watch these movies, The Strangers and Hush and Oculus, and I'm just those weren't actually that bad. So I'm maybe Tasha's Rex or in the same vein of Mike Flanagan, and then she's no, you're gonna watch Hereditary and Infinity Pool, and I'm just what the fuck? This is a 180. Those movies, don't get me wrong, they have some elements that are, I would say, darker, but those movies are just way different than tonally than these are.
I think
you
Tasha,
can't watch movies like this month all the time. No. So I need those other movies as the quick reads, quick watches.
I'm not buying that, Tasha. I think you coach Steph into a sense of security, and then you're just I like Mike Flanagan. I like this. Prepare to be abused.
Yes. Well, it's so strange because I would never
it was a ringer.
Yeah, I was I would never have expected that. I was oh, this is Tasha's taste in horror. Nick's, we know. Nick is let's watch some gloopy stuff that's got a bunch of weird looking, aliens and things and weird stuff. Yeah. It's all practical effects. That is legitimately if Nick's picking a movie and he has a choice of what he's gonna pick, that's exactly what he's fucking picking every single time. Right. And then Tasha's over here I fooled you, fuckers.
Would you like some emotional trauma on the side of this?
And this movie did not give me emotional trauma, but it sure as hell could have. Yeah, it is. If you think, and the play on it, and we'll get into that, it could fuck with your head big time.
Oh,
especially the characters themselves. It is trippy in that sense. So
that's what I remember about his last movie, Possessor, because it deals with it plays on the thing of imposter syndrome. That is the big underlying thing of it, because it's about an assassin that can through technology take over other people's bodies to do the jobs, but then gets the host and stuff starts having this battle with the person taking over the body, and it's pure nightmare scenario. I think it's on Hulu too, Tasha. So if you want another feel bad movie by Brandon Cronenberg, check out Possessor.
Another feel bad movie.
There's no other way. Because you can't.
No.
And I love. Don't get me wrong. I liked this movie, but there's no other way that I could describe it. It's psychedelic feel bad movie.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's what I would call it. But all right. Without any further ado, spoiler warning, last chance. We are going to get into Infinity Pool.
So if you want to be a part of our club, you can find us at facebook.com/podofthedead or else on Instagram at pod_of_the_dead or on TikTok at podofthedead. If you want to email us any questions, any complaints, or movie recommendations, you can email us at podofthedead666@gmail.com.
With that, let's hear that 1 out of 10.
Do you want a review? Or do you want the synopsis first?
I suppose.
Okay. I feel like if we're going to review it, we should have an idea.
I suppose.
So it's a 2023 sci-fi horror film written and directed by the aforementioned Brandon Cronenberg, starring Skarsgård, Mia Goth, and Cleopatra Coleman. It follows a struggling writer and his wife on vacation who, after an accident, discover the country's dark culture.
Yeah. But
it's nothing away.
At the same time, that is not even close to the movie that I feel that I watched.
No.
None of
I mean, I think it gives a very generic overview.
Yeah, what that dark culture could be.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're in spoiler territory. Would it ruin the film if you knew that it was about clones and stuff from the beginning?
I don't think so.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it is more of a surprise when you get into it, though.
Yeah.
I think it's such an overarching, there are clones, but then it's the horror that these people do because they are able to have a clone.
The clone isn't the focus. The clone is the tool that allows for the depravity to happen.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
All right. It's really fucked up.
It is super fucked up. Let's hear that 1 out of 10.
All right. See how many paragraphs I got going on here. All right.
I tried to find some middle grounds for you guys because
this was actually way shorter than normal.
Yeah, I was surprised.
There was one, I think it was a 10 out of 10 review that I found that literally every sentence was then double spaced, and then this fucking thing felt like it was 10 pages long. So it was like bullet pointed nonstop. And I was just
they were in love.
I was like, I'm sure that this is really in depth and stuff. This is a horrible format to write this in.
Yeah. Okay, so this 1 out of 10 says, warning, I'm giving away the entire plot, if you can call it that. It starts out as maybe a passable foreign vacation gone wrong type of movie, but it quickly devolves into complete nonsense. I cannot see why anyone would give this more than 2 stars. It is such a pile of trash. I do appreciate them inventing a fictitious country complete with its own alphabet, yet everyone speaks perfect English. That makes sense, right? And this poor backwards country has the ability to make perfect clones of people in minutes over and over. And the purpose of this is to kill the clones for the original person's crime and charge that person for a bunch of money. What? Wouldn't it make more sense just to charge them a huge fine in the first place? And then there's a few couples who come back to the resort every year to repeat this idiocy. Don't you even try to make sense of this thing? There is sex, then gory violence, then sex, then some trippy video, and then more gore, just some random whatever. Even the ending is beyond stupid. Avoid it at all costs.
Wow. I mean, everything they said was accurate. This is what happens.
It is. I think the one thing that they kind of miss the point of when they're talking about it is like, why would they not just pay the money? It's like, because they still need to exact justice in the culture. They say that, like, in this culture, the son of the father gets to kill the person, blah, blah, blah. But then this also plays on the fact of any law that you break that can be that is just a fine means that it is legal for a price. And that is what this movie plays on, is that anything is legal here as long as you got the money.
But I get what they're saying in that review. Like, I really do. They're talking about how, like, you could just give them money. Realistically, this entire country is impoverished. Like, they're all in poverty, other than like you said, like with this whole place that they're visiting that's like literally gated with fucking barbed wire around the top, like all of this stuff. They're not supposed to leave it, like all of these things. And had they used the money aspect of it and not done this clone shit, which wouldn't have made a movie, obviously, but if they had done that, then they could have given that money to those families, and those families could have gotten out of poverty instead of the government basically pocketing all the cash and then benefiting from it. And so I understand that it's the pocketing of the money for the government, be like that's their way of probably paying for all their fucking people and to be able to have a fucking resort here and all that stuff, like in order for them to, you know, pay for the police that has to be and all this other stuff. But I understand what they're saying in the review, because that would make sense too. So I don't know.
Yeah, but with any corrupt government, you have exactly what you just described.
Correct.
The government's going to make all the money and not give it to the people. So,
oh my God, it almost sounds like us. Yeah,
I know, right?
That's your storyline.
And Mia Goth's character, straight up, like when the man gets hit with a car and stuff that basically starts us down the road of everything bad, she says, we're not going to tell the authorities, because what will happen is you will be raped and then murdered. And like this whole government down to the police up to the top is super corrupt, super violent. They will extort you.
It's true, and she already knows it. We figure that out later.
Correct. So it's one of those things where it's like, no, like this is why this happened. Like there's a I think they do a really good job of laying it out to be like, no, this is how it works. Like there's no, I never had any questions on why are they doing this or why are they doing that. My only big question was like at the end, which we'll get into when we get a little further in. But that was like really my only big question. I mean, there's visuals that are very like artsy, like they could be interpreted in different ways, but I just kind of let those things wash over me and just take them as a mood instead of trying to like, oh, well, in this one like fraction of a second you see this. It's like I'm not going to try and do that.
Yeah, you miss the movie if you try to get all of the details. You don't get that overarching mood, I would imagine.
Correct.
If you're just picking apart every little thing.
Yeah. All right, let's hear that. 10 out of 10.
Okay. This film is everything you want in a horror film from start to finish.
Steph, do you have anything to say about that?
That's bullshit. That's okay.
All right. Well, I think I know where Steph stands. Without giving away spoilers, the murders in this movie are absolutely astonishing to watch. Many times throughout the movie, I had to rethink if all of these weird things were actually happening. All caps. They were at a very fast pace. All caps. Do not listen to any of these bad reviews. They obviously aren't real horror fans.
Okay, hold on. Stop it. I'm the elitist scum here, not this reviewer. I hate that thing. Like, you're obviously not a real horror fan if you don't like this. That is legitimately the other side of the coin of this movie's too pretentious. It's the same fucking thing. I hate it. Go on.
Right, I agree. Because this one's out there, even if you are a horror fan.
Yeah, this is a fucking weird movie.
It is, very.
Where were we? In my opinion, this is Cronenberg's best work to date just because of the shock factor in every single scene. Mia Goth and Alexander Skarsgård are also a phenomenal pairing, with both having very ominous faces throughout every scene. Just specifically their faces.
Their faces. Look at that face.
Ominous.
Ominous.
So sad. If you're a horror fan and you like mind-bendy and gory films, this is as good as it gets. So
I'm not sure if I would say it's as good as it gets, but like I said earlier,
it is pretty gory.
For the time,
it's very mind-bendy.
For the time that it's coming out, it is as good as it gets currently. Like, it is a fucking trip. I haven't seen a film, especially a film that like made the rounds like at our local theater and stuff, that was like this fucking out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting movie. Like I said, I am a huge Alexander Skarsgård fan, and I like Mia Goth. Like she acts her ass off in every movie I've seen with her in it. But I did not expect like what we were watching in this movie. But I think this movie, for me personally, plays a lot on the rich versus the poor, and the whole like if you have money, you can get away with literal murder. And if you are poor, then, which is what ends up happening to Alexander's character in this, you become the butt of a joke, essentially.
Yeah, your existence.
They use you as the pawn.
Yep, your existence is for their enjoyment.
Yep.
And I looked at it. I looked at it from a psychological standpoint of like, this is pure id in human form. So like, this is no consequence, no punishment.
Nope.
If you're left to do what you truly want to do without any moral compass, this is what can happen.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. I mean, realistically, I mean, they do have a possibility of some consequences because if they themselves get hurt, you're not getting fixed. I mean, realistically, your normal form isn't, at least unless you're living as a clone. But like, yeah, that's the only real consequence. Like if you're literally playing around like they are, because they don't really care. It's very much like that fun house, like, oh, we're just little kids having a great time doing horrible things, and we're just gonna pay a shitload of money to get away with it. And like the way they wrote Alexander's character into this as like as a fan of reading a book that he wrote and like all this stuff, I actually believed that for a really long time in this movie until it kind of broke mold and was like, haha, no, sucker. So like I liked that aspect of it. I thought that was really cool, a very interesting way to kind of rope him into their games, I guess.
The thing that I think was probably the best depiction of the class separation, for lack of a better term, was so when Alexander Skarsgård gets taken into jail and stuff, his interaction with the detective of him being scared, does not understand what's going on, is breaking down and everything. Then the next time he's in there with everybody, they're so like, ugh, why aren't you here already? God. And it gets to the point where it's even like, you know, they get pulled off and they get their throats slit and everything. And they're just in the crowd, like cheering, like, yeah, fuck it. That huge disassociation of like the worth of life and stuff. And this is not meant to come off preachy by any sense, but like the fact that they are like, yeah, fuck yeah. And they, you know, as a viewer of this film, that the people that are being executed, that are your doubles, have all of your memories. They believe themselves to be the true one. So that's fucking messed up. It's one thing if it's just like a mindless double that's just the form and everything. Okay, like it's still fucked up. But like the fact that is a real person, like Alexander Skarsgård's character, like is fighting off the guards, gets a knife, all this stuff. Yeah, it's really crazy to see like how these people that have just figured out basically whether they figured it out or they came here specifically knowing that this is like the most debaucherous, decadent like place you could go, because it's like Disney World for serial
killers.
Literally, like, I mean, what's the fucking like, because the poor, they can't afford to have doubles made of them and stuff and replaced, so they literally are getting wiped out by the rich, while the rich can do whatever they fucking want and at literally no cost to them other than money, which they obviously have plenty of.
Which is a play on the classism and the deal that like even we live within America. And that was the biggest takeaway for me. Like all the gluttony and all like the craziness in this movie is like sex and drugs and like we have no responsibilities and we don't get in trouble for nothing. And it's just like this big indulging fest of like, that's what the entire fucking movie is. And then it comes to the end and you're just like, oh, well, they're using him as a pawn, like, because he's the poor guy. And they make fun of him. And but you realize it if you actually pay attention to earlier in the movie when they are talking to the wife at the dinner, and then also when they're on the beach and they're like, oh, well, what are you doing if you're not writing right now? And he's like, I don't know. And the wife's like, well, he married rich. And then they were like, oh, and then when they're on the beach, the other guy, I can't even remember his name, the one that's with Mia Goth, is like, oh, well, they're like literally making fun of him because he's poor and that he's basically useless. Why did you marry him? He doesn't have anything. And she was like, I have daddy issues. I married him because I have daddy issues. And like, because my dad said never to marry a writer and he's worth nothing and all of this. And so like, you already know that there's this classist thing going on because of how much even his wife is playing into the fact that he doesn't contribute. So,
but he's also reaping the benefits because he was able to get a week there without her even knowledge. Like he's playing her too. Yep. So there's this classist thing, but I mean, he's not out of it. He's not completely getting made fun of. He's along for the trip. He's riding on his wife's like money.
Yeah,
so there's 100%. That component of it too.
His darkness comes not from the money that he has; it comes from his narcissism. It's his narcissism. Right. He wants to be important. He just fucking isn't. And and when that gets thrown into his face, when Mia Goth is riding on the front of a car, drinking wine and stuff, reading reviews and stuff, and like it even says like the only reason this person even got to publish a book is because of his stepfather or his father-in-law and stuff. You can see it in his face that it's like he's getting truth thrown in his face that he himself is like, that's not true. Like, I just need to be at this resort for some inspiration or whatever. And it's like, no, it sounds like you find out like at the end of the film and stuff. It's like, no, you were just a shitty writer. It sounds like, but you're putting on this guy's like, because when you see him at the very beginning of the film, he definitely puts on this like the guise of being a very important person. Like, can you believe this? This resort, the Chinese restaurant, and all this stuff. Like they just act like this. Like it's very. And as the film goes on, you just find out how much of that's just a facade of him trying to be that. But like I mentioned earlier about this vacation being influenced by real life. In a 2003 interview with Fangoria, Brandon Cronenberg spoke about how a real-life vacation experience inspired the film. He said, "The film started as a short story just about the first execution, and I was expanding it into a feature. I kept going back to a vacation I went on about 20 years ago to an all-inclusive resort in the Dominican Republic. It was very surreal because they would bus you in the middle of the night so you couldn't see any of the country.
Oh, wow.
They would just drop you in the resort compound, which was in fact surrounded by a razor wire fence. You couldn't leave, much like in the film, and there was this kind of fake town you could go shopping in. The Chinese restaurant and the horrible discotheque in the movie are both based on the actual resort. The scene with the man on the ATV on the beach being chased by guards actually happened. And then at the end of the week, they bust you back during the day and you could see the actual immediate surrounding country, which was very poverty stricken. There were people living in shacks. That contrast was obviously horrible, but also surreal because you realized you had never actually entered the country. You were just dropped in a strange pocket of a sort of alternate dimension that had just grown up to become this tacky Disneyland mirror image of reality."
Yeah.
So that is what started this. And
I know quite a few people that have gone on that exact, like that idea of I'm at a resort, but I cannot leave.
And that's horrifying to me in the sense of like, what's the point of traveling all the way to a country that is steeped? I understand things being dangerous. I'm not talking about having a vacation in a impoverished area, but like, isn't the point of going to another country to like experience its culture? Like that's the thing. So like the idea of like, no, we go to some place in Mexico that literally is no different than the United States because this whole area is just owned by the United States and you can't fucking leave and all this stuff. And it's like, I don't understand that.
It's true. Yeah. But the other thing I was thinking about while we were talking about Alexander's character and how he is like his ego and stuff and he wants to fit in even though he hasn't done anything to earn anything. The wife hasn't done anything to earn anything either other than her daddy's got money.
Correct.
And the other part is that the same, if you look at like the dynamics between all the partners, because they all are all partnered up. They're in on this together. The Mia Goth's character, doesn't do shit either. She just lives off of her husband's piggyback. So like, we can't be going over here to Alexandra's character and being like, that's very sexist. Like, well, you're living off your wife. Your wife didn't earn any money anyway. She's living off of daddy. But at the same time, Mia Goth's character is doing it to her husband too. So like, they're all doing this as a whole.
She's an amazing actress. Remember, she can't cut the bagel. She needs the the bun slicer.
She naturally feels it.
I know.
I love that.
I know.
So absurd.
I know, but like with her playing that and talking about that, it's like, okay, so you can tell that she is no different than him realistically. Like she is not obviously the top of the top in the actress, community. She's doing some like backhanded fucking, probably doing like the Ronco shit. You know what I mean? Like, does this knife cuts through aluminum, like all that shit. Remember, we used to watch it on TV as kids. And so it's the same concept as what she's doing. How is that really any different than him writing a book and that's it, and so like she's living off her husband, he's living off his wife. So
it's that posture.
And I think that's a point. Oh,
yeah. It's that posturing of like self-importance and stuff like that. Like,
yeah, they're both like that
because the other, their partner is successful. They in part feel that they themselves are special, like that they are successful.
But the wife there's nothing that's alluding to the wife in this actually being successful. No, everything is she married into money.
Successful in the sense of having money. That's it. Like,
yeah.
But
the husband is an architect. So like he has money. Like he's like, well, I'm retired now, but I'm an architect. Like he is like legitimately worked for his money in that sense. Well, in the sense of worked for, whatever.
Architects
all
work
that
for
bullshit.
Money. That's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is. But you know what I mean?
I mean, he made that really pervy infinity pool that you could look up under the glass. Like that's what they were saying. And then it fell and killed people.
And killed 2 people. Yeah. And that's how they got called. That's how they got pulled into this.
Yeah. So I guess
but that doesn't say the other people.
Yeah. It like the fact that they come back year after year is literally the grossest part of this movie because they know, like, they're like, oh man, it's been a hard year. Let's go to, I can't even begin to pronounce how they name, because it's like QLRL or like Quirl or some shit like that. Let's just go there and fucking have drugged up orgies and kill anything that's around us and just, it's going to cost us money, but you know what? I've been saving a little bit of money. I think we can probably kill like 7 people this time. And,
and like how they broke into the general's house or like the sheriff, like things like that. There's something about it being middle-aged people and older people that adds yet another layer of uncomfortable feeling to it versus like The Strangers, where you have like 20 somethings like wreaking havoc. Like that storyline has been done over and over again. But when you see like retirees on vacation going like and wreaking havoc in someone's house, that's another added component. And the place is called Latoka.
Latoka? Okay.
Yeah. It's how I've heard it pronounced. And when I see it written, that's what I think.
I must be looking at a different word then, because it was on the side of the bus and it was like literally like QLR. I was like,
that's their language.
Okay. I was like, there are no vowels in this word. I don't know.
And that's the cool part about their language is it kind of looks real. It kind of looks like it could, everything alludes to that, like it's on the cusp of actually existing, which messes with you.
It's like that weird, like almost uncanny valley where you're like, wait, what? Where am I? What the fuck's going on? And like they were saying in that one review where it's like, and everyone speaks English. That's not believable. On a resort, it is.
It is.
It's straight up. Like that is. Yep. It is like English is one of the most spoken languages in the world. These people that work here probably speak like at least the top 3 languages. Like just to get, and there's people that probably are more specialized than others, and that's where they point you in the direction of.
It's the same way.
And it's also a made-up place. Let's not forget that.
Yeah.
I mean, everything's
That's the joy
made
of
up.
being in a made-up country.
Yeah.
Made-up rules, made-up language. They all speak English because this is a place that doesn't exist.
Well, and they also do like little nods to like making the culture its own. Like, have you noticed like they all had the little swipes of paint on their cheek and stuff? never explained. It's just part of the culture, and it's really neat. Like he went that in depth. Like what's something that would be native to this area, or like the indigenous people, the indigenous culture here, what would it be like? And I think he didn't have to do that by any means, because it doesn't matter, but it definitely fleshes out the world a little bit more, which is nice.
Well, that's how they got to introduce the masks. Like if they didn't have all of that, they wouldn't have the masks. The masks are what add to the grotesqueness of the
Yes.
I can't believe we've went this long without talking about the masks. Those masks
they're so
are horrifying. Like there's one specific one. I think it's Mia Goth's husband has one that is like one face and another face off the side. I want that mask. It is horrifying looking. I just want it in the studio here living, because I think Alexander Skarsgård got the short end of the stick with his mask. It's not as cool as everybody else's. But those are pure nightmare fuel. Like they're just grotesque, weird, deformed human forms, and it's supposed to be something akin to like a spiritual celebration that this culture enacts yearly. But they use them basically as their robbery masks, as it were. And
but it could be played off of the whole concept of what they're doing to that the people that come can kill them, and then they can pay it off, because some of those masks look two-faced. One of them has a bunch of money in the mouth.
I didn't even put that together.
One has coins all in it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So maybe that could just it's part of the culture part of that. That's what people do, and it could be the culmination of the end of the season, because they did say at the end of the season they have this whatever. The end of the season, these people have to leave, and they can't come and kill people until the next season. So maybe they're celebrating that the culture is celebrating that these people aren't here in order to then enact their violence on them.
Literally,
so it could
rape
very
and
much
pillage.
be that. Yeah, it's exactly what it is. And so then these people wear these masks. The masks look like two-faced, and they have money in their mouths. And then there's like all these other like fucked up, grotesque things, because that's maybe what these people are to their community.
That's a really interesting take on that. I never made that connection. It's gotta be. That's gotta be.
It has to be something. It's not just randomly placed there. It's not just random.
Whether that's what the culture is from the writing and directing, that's gotta be like the line that's drawn there.
Since the masks are sold in their gift shop.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's fine.
And they made a point to tell us that they were doing some end of season ritual thing.
Yep.
And it doesn't sound like these people have like an end of season killing spree. It seems that they do it the entire time that they're visiting. So I think this has to do with maybe, like I said, the culture being like, yay, they're gone.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Because then the rainy season happens, which we see at the end of the film. But I want to talk about the psychedelic visuals that we get in this film, because they are insane. Like pure sex, drugs, violence, all mixed into one, with beautiful color grading and stuff. Very, very beautiful / scary, because you're seeing like the one scene that I can think of is like the big mass orgy that goes on in it. And you keep getting these like small breaks in reality where it's Mia Goth's face, but then it's the mask and shit like that. And you're watching Alexander Skarsgård character like fucking like freaking out a little bit, like very uncomfortable in this. So again, in a Fangoria interview, I have Brandon Cronenberg talking about how they did this. So basically in the script, it would just say something to the regard of psychedelic nightmare. Like that's all it would say.
Okay.
So what would happen is we would start by doing a large number of experiments with gels and lights and diopters, figuring out how we could deform the image and the color in interesting ways. We would also we also involved Dan Martin, our special effects makeup artist, in those discussions, because some of them were effects based. Also, Zasoya McKenzie, our production designer, built these incredible mirror boxes that were there was one that was entirely mirrors, except for the front. It was a two-way mirror, so you could see through it but not out. And then on the back, it was kind of smart glass. So you could have a pinwheel of lights in the back that would spin and only the lights would come through the smart glass and then reflect around the inside of the box. I'm told what Kareem was the cinematographer. So Kareem and I would do in front of the cameras look like stupid puppet shows because we were dangling little bits of gels and light cubes and so on. Then after we did all of these shots, we would re-photograph the rushes. So a rush is like just the initial photography, like reel. We would re-photograph the rushes in Kareem's living room. We projected them, filmed them again through additional layers of manipulation, sometimes for incredibly long times. One day, I believe Kareem and I spent 16 straight hours re-photographing the rushes, creating an absolute mountain of footage that had to be dealt with my poor editor, James Vanderwater. James and I spent a very long time cutting those sequences together, sometimes frame by frame, like stop motion. We'd be picking individual frames and pairing them together to see what kind of effects we could generate. So that all that psychedelic shit is all in camera, and then it's not computer generated. That shit is all just stacked film and gels and re-photographing and all that. So that's insane to me.
Wow. Mm-hmm. No wonder it really feels like you have no frame of reference. You don't know what body parts, what hands, what's happening. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And it's for such a small bit. Like, I can understand why that scene is as long as it is now because of all the work that they put in. Could you imagine if it was only like 5 seconds and it took weeks to do?
Yeah, when they're talking about like it being like basically a stop motion, like literally going, I want this frame here. That's insane because you're talking about, I think films are somewhere around like 30 frames a second. Something in that ballpark. So you're talking about when you're specifically, I think 24 to 30, specifically picking frame by frame for this fucking kaleidoscopic nightmare scenario.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Wow.
It's unsettling.
It is. It's cool. Yeah, it is. But the other part I liked about it is that if they were just having an orgy on the screen, it wouldn't have had the same effect as it did if they did it this way. It would just been like, oh, I guess we're throwing in a bunch of sex in this movie. Not like we didn't already know this is what they were doing. Like that kind of thing. But by adding this with him also doing the drugs, like that was another thing I pointed out. And Nick and I were talking about is like the other people are drinking and they are participating, but they are not doing what they're forcing him to do. So they are literally getting him super fucked up on drugs and alcohol and all this stuff while they're sitting back and just sipping their drinks and they're not participating to that level. So then he is also living in this nightmare. And like Nick said, it's like he's our proxy. So what he's experiencing, we're supposed to be experiencing, or at least seeing to some degree like he does. So like even when he got into that weird room earlier, which is what Nick was laughing about with the mouthpiece.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, when they're getting him all set up with the rubber hat and the mouthpiece, he's just standing there confused and everything. I fucking like primal gut laughed.
Wow. Yeah. I thought that was so unsettling. So that's weird that we have two very different opinions on that. It's so weird.
Yeah.
It is.
It was just
dirty.
Like, it was just his eyes and the mouth like wide open. I couldn't help but laugh.
And I see that as just pure panic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, it was, I don't know. I liked that we got to kind of play the storyline. Basically, we're living through one character's perspective in a sense, I guess, we're still kind of outside watching, but like we're definitely living through him. And I liked that part. Even when we got to where like basically the veil was lifted essentially, which started when, and I already called this before it even happened, when they brought the person in and they were saying it was somebody else that it wasn't. And they were like, you got to beat this guy up or whatever.
The bagged head.
The bagged head. Yeah. And I was like, those are his feet. That's his hands. Like you could tell that it was him. And like, because he just has a very like I want to say androgynous, but like he's a very tall, like he has unique features, I guess. Alexander Skarsgård does. And like, you could tell it was him under there. And then he ends up beating the shit out of him. And that was like all of those scenes where he's doing stuff against himself is like, and anything that happens to the clones is very like visceral, very bloody, very it's intense. It's not just like, they don't just go, they don't allude to it. Like, he gets his fucking throat slit. He gets stabbed in the gut over and over and over again. He beats the shit out of his face to the point that his eye socket completely caves in. Like all of those pieces are, and all of this is happening to him, but not him.
Correct.
So that in itself is just like, all these other motherfuckers are doing the same thing, but we're not seeing their perspective because that's not the point of this movie. But the most unsettling thing for me in this was like, how can you watch or participate in those things with yourself and be like sitting back or participating and being like, yeah, that's fine, it's okay,
or cheering along with it?
Well,
that's
exactly.
the one that really got me. Yeah,
the thing that like came to my mind when that was happening during the dog scene, bring the dog, and then he kills it and stuff. It's so Mia Goth's character says like, this is very important that you do this and everything. At that point, I think she's like, I think they're trying to do to him at that point is, one, it's for their own enjoyment, but two, I think it's kind of more initiation in the sense of kind of going with like what Tasha was saying about the id and stuff, is like killing the self. Like that whole idea of like, once you do this, nothing will bother you because you will have finally crossed the ultimate line of exacting the most violence humanly possible on yourself and live past that. So I think that's kind of what they're trying to do to him in that scene. And they're also trying to make it easier on him by just giving him the knife.
Yeah.
And just kill yourself, but not yourself, but kill yourself, and he won't do it. And then it has to be far worse because the dog is attacking him. It's just him on all fours, like attacking him, and he ends up, pummeling. And it's the violence in this film, when it's violent, because it's not violent all the time. And when it does happen, it is so unbelievably brutal and so shocking because it comes out of left field. Like when he's pummeling that head in, or when he's fighting the guards and they cut his throat. I was not expecting that because you're thinking that's the real James, but it's not. You find out that it's not because that happens. Then they're all getting their throats slit. Then the camera pans and it's just them in the fucking crowd like, fuck yeah.
He did it.
So fucked up.
So messed up.
But,
and it seems like they were curating how this was going to play out too.
Correct. Yep.
Which is another layer.
But like going back to like me gut laughing and you not gut laughing. So he was asked how much of the film was intended to get laughs with that dark comic edge. He said the whole thing to a certain degree. I think it can be both. You can be funny and still serious, but it was definitely intended to be humorous. In our early test screenings, when I showed it to groups of friends and colleagues during the editing process, we didn't get any laughs. And that was very worrying. I thought if people weren't getting the humor of it, that was going to be a problem, but it seems to have worked itself out. So what I think he means by that is like, by no means is this meant to be like, this is hilarious. But the absurdity of some of the situations and stuff are so absurd that you can't help but like, whether it's outwardly or inwardly, laugh to yourself like, what the fuck?
So like a lot of the times where James's character is getting killed, because those scenes are so graphic, it took me out of it because it's so over the top. There's so much blood. When he pops his head out of the infinity pool for the first time, it's like a little shock, and then you giggle because there's something odd about it.
Yeah,
the
it's
stabbing.
so
There's
weird.
just something odd about it. So those parts definitely made me giggle. Just like the stab would happen and you go, oh my God. And then it would just keep coming and keep being bloody. Like, all right, we get it.
Yeah.
And then a lot of Mia Goth's parts where she is just completely unhinged. You can't help but think of how absurd this is.
Like her riding on the front of the Cadillac with a bottle of wine and drops her bottle of wine, and that's what's
And
bothering her. She's like,
whines.
oh, my wine. That is a 100% mood that like I can see some people being like, that's them and stuff. It's
Yeah.
just like, Jesus Christ, this fucking prissy, like stuck up on herself. You're literally walking down a guy at gunpoint on the hood of a car, and then you dropped your wine, and you're just like,
After you just chased the bus off the road at gunpoint,
yeah,
and she's screaming horrible, like,
got the
terrible
window
things
out
about him.
like
Yeah.
it's fucking absurd.
Talking about how he's like the scum of the earth and would do anything to, like, it doesn't matter. He would throw his mom under the bus to get away with something, like just completely defaming him.
The quoting for that is so weird. She's like yelling at the bus driver and the people on there and says, he sold his mother for horse meat.
That's it. Okay, I knew there was something about his mom.
I was like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Like, she's lost it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at
She's
the same
crazy
time,
in this.
by the end of the film and stuff, we get it where, you know, they're like, all right, we're gonna go back home, and they're all on the bus and everything, and just
And acting normal.
talking about their mundane life. Like, oh, you
Yep.
know, the husband's got to go to work, and when I get bored, I just rearrange the house, and he's just sitting in the back, completely broken.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so that part's fucked up. But the other thing, this was the only thing I didn't get about. Well, I didn't get some of the parts of the movie, but like this part. So after he kills the dog, right, and he's like sitting there on the floor, and he's on the ground. He's basically just completely like he's just
Broken.
done, essentially. Yeah, and she pulls her shirt down, rubs his blood like from the death on her boob, and like starts feeding him like a child.
I
And
don't
thought that
understand it
was
at all.
the weirdest. Like I was
Yeah.
trying to piece something together where it would make sense. Like there's some kind of story behind this, or why it would be used.
Symbolism or something.
Yeah, and I can't think of a fucking thing in this entire anything that would make sense.
There was another part during the orgy that it's showing like a lactating boob. There's something, I don't know what it is, but at the very end, I see it as just like pure submission to her.
That could make sense. That could make sense. I don't know if it executes it well.
Right. Because it gets weird with like stuff coming out of it.
Yeah, the nipple
Yeah, that part
scene
was weird too.
and then the breastfeeding scene, to me, literally were like the two parts of the movie that, for me, where it wasn't like that it was too much, but I was just like, is this legitimately being done just to be uncomfortable? Like,
Yeah.
I think so.
Is that the point of it? Like, because that was all I got out of it, is like, this part's weird, like legit weird, and I can't understand the purpose of it. But like, I guess if it's submission, that makes sense.
Kind of.
But I don't know.
Because that's how I see the whole
Sucking on
movie
a-
is.
Yeah, that's true. But how does sucking a boob mean submission? I guess that's where I'm lost at that, because it doesn't resonate with me. I guess I don't know.
Well, it's like almost the ownership part of
Right.
like it's that submissive dominance thing of like being the hand that feeds and the hand that beats kind of thing. So I guess I'm just now kind of getting what you're
Like,
not
she's in
getting what you're
complete
saying.
control. Like,
Yeah.
like Nick said, she's 100% in control of him for everything that he needs. And then
And-
she, in turn, is able to do whatever she wants with him.
It's still
I guess it's the power dynamic.
Right.
I guess.
because that's like essentially what she gets off on. Like that's
Well, yeah,
what
that's
she-
her whole thing in this entire fucking movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Is watching him do what she wants him to do. Like holding the gun to the sheriff's head or whatever. Like, she's the puppet master for him.
Well,
But they're all involved in this ring of
yeah, they
hedonism anyway.
They like all the hedonistic things and all that stuff. Her kick is literally him. Because if you really look at it, throughout the entire film, her husband is like played up as like, you know, the buddy, you know, like, oh, come on, you know, James, like, just drinks up some more and everything. Her interaction with him is the fucking dark part of it. Is just the, like, from the get-go, she's jerking him off in the fucking, at the beach and stuff. Like, literally rapes him. Like, that's
Right.
what that is. Like, she rapes him there. And then he has to fucking just play it off like nothing happened, because how do you broach that in this situation to your wife and everything, and they're fucking drunk and all this stuff, and he accidentally kills the person, then she instantly takes control. This is what's happening. Husband, whatever his name is, husband, you're driving, fucking get here, basically shut the fuck up.
Well, she turns him in.
Yeah, and then they fucking sell him out, and then because his double is killed, you're free now. Let's talk about this and everything. And everybody's actually more interested in, like, since you're so fresh, like, let's talk about this and stuff. And her whole thing is, okay, now that I've got my plaything, what can I fucking do to this person? To, like, it's literally like that next step of, like, what they've been able to do at this resort over the years has become boring. She needs to go another step and fucking make it personal and very continuously torturing, not just killing, but torturing someone psychologically and physically.
Yeah.
And the husband's there for it too, because he's watching them have sex in that orgy.
Yeah.
Like he knows what's going on, and it's all, everyone's fine with it.
Now,
but you don't know that she's not like that with her husband, because it doesn't show that she's not. So maybe she's the person that's always in control of everything, including her husband.
Well,
or it's the opposite in regular life, where she's the docile, demure one, but on this
I think that's 100%.
island, she's able to completely switch.
I think that's 100% of what it is, because, like, when they're back home, he's the one working and stuff, and she's just bored at home. But when they fucking get to go out, it's almost like because, like, they kind of show her cuckolding him at one point, because she's like fucking Alexander Skarsgård, and her husband is literally at the base of the bed on his knees jerking off to them. Like,
that's true.
It's so fucked up, and like, it's in that scene is it like for a half a second, like in this nightmare kaleidoscope. Yeah, it's so fucking crazy. Our description, poor listener. Our descriptions of what is going on in this scene and stuff, like the orgy scene, which I think is the best scene in the movie. That is, like, for me, not because of the sex, but just I can't remember a movie that has done that, like, kaleidoscopy feel with the ominous pressure of it and stuff. I really liked that scene. That scene alone gives this movie a point. Like, period. Wow. Like, I really liked that, because there are shortcomings of this film that I have problems with. Like I said, like the actual story of the film, I'm not trying to review it right now, but like the actual story of the film is like, people go here, clones, hedonistic stuff. And everything. Like,
so normal.
Well, no, it's not that it's normal. It's just like, I wouldn't rewatch this for the story. I would rewatch it for the visuals and stuff. Like, that's what is the selling point, the visuals and the soundtrack. But
so what do you guys think of sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna go ahead. You're fine.
I was just gonna see what you guys thought about the very end.
That's what I was just about to bring up. So the very end, I literally had to look up, because I came to my conclusion of what I thought, and then I read a conclusion that actually makes way more sense to me. So, I guess I can just kind of spill the beans with what I just thought. He was like broken and stayed, and that was it. What I read, though, was the amount of copies that you see in the film, the amount of urns that you see in the film don't equal a level number. The James that you see in the airport is busted up. The James you see at the resort in the rain isn't. Those are two separate people going. Now, whether the one that's busted up is the real one going home or a double, I don't know. I have a feeling that the original one stays and a double goes, which is the darker ending, which I think is the intended ending, but I don't know. But yeah, that's because I literally like watched it. I was like, so all this happens and he goes home. Oh wait, no, he doesn't get on the plane. He just goes back to the resort. Well, that's kind of a weird ending.
Oh wait,
like that's kind of how I thought it was. And then I ending of Infinity Pool explained, and got on a Reddit forum where people were just like, I think this is what happened. I think this is what happened. There is no like, this is what happened. But I do like that explanation of it where the double goes home, he stays. So.
And I thought a lot of that, but I didn't think he stayed because he was broken. I thought he stayed with the intent to continue on with the debauchery.
Could be.
Like he's completely given into this world now, so he stayed to continue on because like he's clearly not happy with his wife. Like that kind of ending to it. But yeah.
Yeah. Fucked up. Like legitimate downer ending and a half.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Kind of.
Kind of. Oh, hold on. Uplifting ending?
It's not uplifting, but like
nice.
it's a little bit honestly, I thought it was a cleaner ending than what I thought we were gonna get. So I assumed he was just gonna die or something like that, and like it was actually relatively clean ending. Like maybe he's leaving to go home, or maybe his clone's leaving to go home, and then somebody's staying behind. Like other than that, it was just to me the ending was actually the weakest part of the entire movie.
Oh, okay.
It was just meh. Like, okay, I guess this is what we're doing. So,
right on. Yeah, I liked the ambiguity of the
me too.
And because like it is just kind of open for it ends the way you want it to. It's not handed to you, which some people cannot like. Some like I like that though, that it opens up for discussion of this is what I think it is. It's like, okay, I don't see it that way. I think it's this. So unless you girls have anything else to say, I guess we can get into review territory.
That works for me.
I think we're good. Yeah. Go for
Okay. Well, before I guess reviews, what's everybody's favorite character?
Oh yeah. Mia.
Mia Goth?
Yeah.
I would say acting wise, yeah. I mean, although I think we're just not giving Alexander Skarsgård enough credit here because he had to be a dog in this. He had to be like a guy getting beat up on the floor. He had to pretend he was getting his throat slashed from a guard. Like he's playing all of these parts that we're not getting from anybody else. Like realistically, he's
it's because you
better.
love him. You love him.
I
like
really
he's
do
your
love
puppy.
him. Yeah, I'm the Mia Goth in the story. No, I'm just kidding.
I just didn't like his character. Like
I don't think you're supposed to.
Him.
You're not supposed to like anybody in this film.
You're not.
The only close to good character in this movie is the wife, M.
And she's still.
And even then, but that's it. That's the best we get.
Yeah, and
that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, acting wise, I think what we're doing with the actors here is like what we said earlier is that like Mia Goth acts way above because she's like over exaggerated in her acting, and then he is very more subdued. But like if you're talking about like true acting and like ability and all of that, yeah, she does a lot of highs really well, but he has to play all the subtle parts and make it feel real, and like he's the like more innocent guy that's going to be doing the drugs as she's pushing them on him, and like he's the one like has to pretend he's getting a fucking hand job, like all of those things that you don't think about because it's so like under the radar, and she's just so up here. I'm gonna change my story. I think it's him because he really does have to act a lot. Like he's drunk and he has to like run out of the way of like a cop car, and like he's like fucking high and all fucked up, and like all of those things he has to do in this movie in so many different variances. And it's not just because I love him, because I do, but like I do think acting wise he does a way better job in this movie.
To go back to just before I say mine, I do have a question for you, Steph. So,
oh my God.
your immersed love for Mr. Alexander Skarsgård, if they made a Queen of the Damned or a Interview with the Vampire and they made him Lestat, would that just be the greatest thing in your life, considering you love Lestat and then you love Alexander Skarsgård?
But he already plays the amazing vampire of Eric Northman, and so he already fulfills that need.
That's true.
He's amazing.
But he's not Lestat. I just want to meet him.
No. Well, no, I like Lestat from Queen of the Damned. That's a totally different thing. But no, Eric Northman all day, every day. So and he's incredible as that. So, I mean, come on. I like him. I would say probably 90% of the movies that he's been in. So even like the smaller films, other than I don't think I've seen Melancholia or whatever it's called, Melancholia, whatever it is. I haven't seen that one, but I've seen quite a few movies he's been in.
Yeah, so. He's always at the very least he's very serviceable, there are certain films that he's great in. I think he was all right in this. Like, I think he did the job. There are certain qualities that he definitely does really well in this film. The beginning specifically, like the arrogance and stuff. He has that look that gives like weight to the arrogance. It's when he is breaking down and stuff. I feel that there probably could have been a better actor to do that.
Possibly.
Just in my, I don't have a single actor in mind. Mine is just, if that shit was fucking happening to someone, in my head, there is someone just screaming, losing their shit over it. And it just kind of comes off like, no, I'm not going to do it. You do it yourself. Just like, I would be fucking losing my shit. So like that could be a directorial, like this is how he wanted him to act and stuff. I don't have any idea on that.
I don't either.
But I'm torn between Mia Goth and Alexander Skarsgård. I also really like, I think it's the detective that's explaining to them what's going on. I really liked him. I thought
I do too.
There was something about him, like he just embodied that character so well. And it's just like, now I would really like it if you just said that you stole the car and all this stuff, and we'll just continue on. He's like, okay. And I think Alexander did a great job there at being broken. But later on in the film, I just don't think he captures it as well. So for those reasons, and specifically for riding on the front of a car and whining about a wine bottle falling, I'm going to give it to Mia Goth in this film.
Okay.
And I'm still torn too, where I think if I had to go based on acting chops, it would probably lean towards Skarsgård because of like what she said with having to play so many versions of himself. But if we're looking at character, it's 100% Mia Goth's character.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, she does play crazy really, really well.
Exactly. Like that's her wheelhouse was this movie.
And my dreams and nightmares will be haunted by James. James, why don't you come out, James? Like nonstop. And that's all I knew.
She's a great actress.
That's all I knew about this film. I was telling Steph before we watched it, I was like, I know the pedigree and stuff. And all I know is like I've heard people talking about how ridiculous hearing Mia Goth just yell the name James all the time. And it literally, like, she refers to him by name nonstop in the film. James, come over here. James, do this. James.
That's another way to, like, get somebody in. You always feel better when someone uses your name. So it's all of these little, like, psychological tactics to keep him on a metaphorical and real leash throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, I was thinking about like his previous, like she has a very, like I haven't seen a lot of her movies, so like she has a very similar like acting in the movies that I've seen of her. But like with Alexander Skarsgård, this movie is different than most of the movies I've seen of his, at least that I can recall, because he's usually the alpha male in most of the shows and movies he's in. He's very like, he's Tarzan. He's very like,
the Northman.
The Northman, yeah, exactly. Like he's insane in that movie, and like just seeing him have to play a different type, like even as Eric Northman, you know, he is a dominant alpha male, take no shit character in pretty much everything I've seen. Not everything, but most things that he's been in. And so, like for him to in this movie have like a twist of that, I really appreciated that in the sense like I like both of them. It's really hard to pick just because there's a difference in like what you prefer in terms of acting versus what is actually reality of like the quality of their talent. So I it's hard, but yeah, I mean, I have to look at like he's playing definitely a different character than what he usually does.
Well,
so
and he came from the Northman to this film. Like,
shit,
those were like back to back in a sense.
That movie is insane.
So like those are so wildly different, but also from very I would consider like visionary directors. Like Eggers, the guy that did The Northman, he's also the same guy that did The Witch and stuff like that. And like that movie gets real trippy at the end. And then to go from that to Brandon Cronenberg's fucking Infinity Pool, it's like, what the fuck, man? Like you went from being just a muscle-bound revenge machine to the most like stepped on person like I've seen in a movie in a long time.
Yeah.
You can see like in this movie, it's a lot of posturing, and then
Yes.
he gets broken down and broken down and broken down. And I still think that there's that part of him that has like that I want to be strong and I'm not gonna bend, but then he just keeps getting beaten down. And I do think the alcohol and the drugs are helping like facilitate that. So like I said, the movie has a lot of layers. And like last night, I'm gonna be honest, like when after we ended this movie, I was like, I did not like this movie. I thought this was not very good. And like after we talk about it, and I feel this way sometimes, it's like I had a score in my head last night because I was just furious because I was just like, this movie is just I can't believe I can't believe I just watched this. Like I was like, this is just fucked up. Like and not in like the like things that are fucked up don't bother me. Like I gave Hereditary 7.5 even though it wrecked me. So like it's not like that, but it was just kind of like what did I watch? Why was this? Yeah. But as we talk about it and you kind of like pull back the layers and like the understanding and the artistic abilities and all this other stuff, you have, I think for me personally, especially in this case, a little bit more of appreciation for it, even though it didn't really resonate with me when we were necessarily finishing the movie. And I was just kind of like, really? This is how we're ending this movie?
Yeah, like I remember the movie ended. I was like, so what did you think? Because like always end with like a light debriefing almost.
Yeah.
Like, we're just like, so what's up? And she was just like, ugh. I was like, oh, okay, all right. Like right on. Like not every movie is for everyone. Like,
Right.
No, it's true. It's true.
And again, that's the reason that we are the three that do this podcast, because we don't agree on everything. We all have different likes and dislikes. So
I'm pretty used to Steph not liking what I pick, so
I mean,
it's usually a surprise.
do you like Hereditary?
I
Yeah,
did
that's what I'm
like
saying.
Hereditary. Yeah. But like, I'm not. I have come
There's
to the
others.
terms that Mike Flanagan and I are not BFFs.
I'm not worried about it.
No.
It's not,
I know.
It's not about that. I'm just like,
I don't need
swear.
to be liked. But,
No. Whoa, watch out now. I don't need anybody.
I don't need you to like it.
I just need my doubles.
Yeah.
and my wall of urns.
Right.
But
So weird.
yeah. So that being said, let's get into our reviews.
I'll just go.
Okay, go ahead, Steph.
So, we already talked about the movie enough. At the end of the day, the plot was just realistically, as much as we're talking about it and stuff, and it has different layers. Overall, it's very loose. It's just kind of like it doesn't make a lot of sense to me personally. I really the main thing I said earlier is like I appreciate the whole concept of like the rich getting away with what they want versus the poor, and then all of that stuff. Like I liked that dynamic in this. That was more reminiscent of like real life and stuff, but the movie itself, it was okay. Like the acting was good. That's not, to me, it wasn't that. And like Nick thinks the movie has this great soundtrack and has all those great visuals. I didn't think any of that stuff, like other than the sex scene, like where they're like all the psychedelic stuff, that was really cool looking. But apart from that, I was just kind of like, it's okay. So overall, I'm gonna give it a 5. I was going to give it less than that last night, but I'm like, this is a movie, like 5 is my cutoff of like, if I'll possibly watch it again, it has to be at least a 5. If it's less than that, I'm never fucking watching that movie again. So I think I would maybe attempt this at some point, and maybe I would get a different reaction and understanding of the movie watching it a second time, since I've already kind of know what I'm going into. But yeah, that's what I'm going with.
All right. I'll go, and then the one that brought it to the table can go last, so she can have the
Sounds
floor. So yeah, I love the cinematography of this film. I love the psychedelics and stuff. The soundtrack, I'm gonna have to look it up and stuff, because I really like the foreboding, ominous stuff. I want to find out who actually did it. I meant to look it up, didn't have time. Whatever. All of that stuff was like top tier to me, like 10 out of 10. Where the movie I feel lacks is the narrative. Not that I think it's poorly written or anything like that. I guess I wanted a little more. I guess I do like the nuances of like class and all of that, but at some point it was like right around the dog scene, I think, in the film, I was like, it can end now. Like, it just felt like we were retreading we weren't getting anywhere new, like, because the car scene, like the bus and Mia Goth in the car and stuff is like the apex of the film. Like, you finally break through and find out what's going on, and then it's now we have some more stuff that we're gonna do, and it's just like so it feels like it's a little bloated in the last act. I think if we could have, realistically, if you cut the dog scene out, that whole scene or whatever, I think the movie's a lot better. Not that it's a bad scene. The fucking violence in it and everything is good. It's just, at the same time, did we need more of it? Because
it was unnecessary.
It's just, we're getting, at that point, I feel like we're, like I said, retreading. We're getting kind of more of the same. We already know that he's broken. We can't break him anymore, realistically. So, that's like my biggest shortcoming for the film. I think it's greatly acted, well shot, all that stuff. I'm giving this film, I believe, let me think here. I'm teetering between two numbers, and I need to really weigh it. I think I am going to give Infinity Pool, I think I'm going to give it a 6.5. I am going to watch it again at some point. But like I said, I'm not going to watch it again for the narrative, the story and stuff.
Yeah.
Literally going to rewatch it for the visual aspects of it. Like, that is what this movie brings to the table for me. Cronenberg and his cinematographer, because it's the same cinematographer he had for Possessor, they can make some of the most horrifying nightmare pictures. Like, something that is just framed there. It's not that the scene is so scary. It's just, this is shit that you see in your nightmares that you can't explain. And for some reason, it's very unsettling. And I really like that. I would be very, very interested to see Cronenberg direct a film that someone else wrote the story to, because he wrote Possessor and he wrote Infinity Pool. I would actually like to see him take on someone else's script and put his spin on it to see how that works. But yeah, so I'm giving it a 6.5.
Okay.
So, I've watched this movie one other time. This is my second viewing. I actually liked it more the second time around. I'm not in it for a tight storyline. You guys know that. And I think that's why I probably like it more than you guys, because I didn't get caught up with some of the things that bothered you guys, because I watched it and it made, because it's a movie, because it's like in suspended, like it's not real, the place isn't even real, that gives a lot of creative license that I very easily fall into. Oh, well, it's this way because that's the way this place is. So yeah, that's never an issue for me, thankfully. Okay.
Rules,
so I'm
what
there.
Rules?
Exactly. I'm in it. I'm in it. We're here. No questions asked in most cases.
Yeah.
I really liked, like how Nick had mentioned, I really like that unsettling feel that you get from this movie. There are some bits where I'm glad to know it was supposed to be humorous, because I did get pulled out of the tension there for a little bit in some cases. Now that I know that that's the point, cool. Especially when James looks up when he's out of the infinity pool. That's just, like, it seemed very like 1960s like B movie horror, yes, right there.
Very much so.
Yeah. So that resonated. Yeah, I'll watch it again. I like it. I like mind-bendy movies that don't necessarily always need to make sense, but if they make me feel weird, then that's a win. Yeah, I can't think of anything else really. It was beautiful. The location was beautiful. I'm gonna give it a 7.5.
All right.
Okay.
I'm sure I missed something, but
it's a passing grade, so we know that.
Oh yeah.
It is. Hold for math. It's a 63.
Okay. So I think more likely than not, you go into this film, you're going to you're gonna have a bad time, but in a good way.
Yeah. Right.
More likely than not. Mileage may vary because this, again, I say it a million times, not every film is for everyone. So I guess I would, if I were to suggest this film to someone, I would do it with the preface that it's like, it's a fucking weird movie. Like, knowing that going into it makes it a little more palatable to somebody that is expecting even X. Like, if you saw X and then went into this because you know Mia Goth, this is not X. This is fucking...
No, X is amazing. Yeah. In comparison to this. So
X is rooted in reality, and I think having that component adds a lot to a movie. Like, knowing that this is not in reality, knowing that little tidbit is enough, I think, to let you know kind of where this could go.
But I didn't take that from this movie, I guess. Like, I understand what you're saying, like, because it's not real, like all of that. And that the other one definitely, like, that's their portrayal of it. But like, to me, this feels like people who this could be reality in another world. Like, it's not so outlandish that it couldn't be possible, in the sense of like, there is a place that you could go to, and if you kill people, this is what could happen. And like, because of the play on money and all that stuff, I truly believe, like, from the standpoint of the plot, it is feasible. It's not like we're watching fucking Prey and we've got all the crazy alien stuff. Like, this is definitely something I felt like was definitely trying to be rooted in reality.
It's definitely,
it's on
like
it's like knocking at the door on reality.
It's a comment on social hierarchy and like said previously, where Tasha was saying, like, pure id, where it's just, this is what happens when power goes unchecked. This is what, so it's very, as sci-fi as it is, really good sci-fi has its toe in reality. So.
And this, I felt like this was in reality. I know it's the whole cloning concept, but like, we're not so far removed from that possibility in the world. So like, I think that's the different aspect.
We have the technology. Yeah. We are completely.
I know, but I'm talking about in this aspect.
Well, yeah, cloning someone in a day with all of their memories and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just like you said, it's something that could happen in a different world. Like, that's the component of it. Like, it's the neighboring universe.
Yeah.
Where this is happening. Yeah. Like that, like, it's so close, which then makes it all the more scary,
unsettling,
right, because it's just there.
This could be 110% believable in like 10 years. Like, so here's something that's really interesting. I just popped into my head. So you've got those movies, The Purge, that had come out, where it's just like one night everybody gets to kill everybody and stuff. It kind of plays on the same thing, but this one has so much more social commentary to it, where that one like tries to be a little cerebral, but at the end of the day, it's just like, but what if this happened? Where this one is just like, it does make you think, whether it's good or bad. Like, that's not the point. The point is, it's a film that's going to visually shock you in some facet, and it's going to sit with you and make you go, well, why do I feel so dirty? And it's it's probably because it's somewhat relatable, like you were saying, Steph, where it's like, you can draw a line to the rich versus the poor, like, and it doesn't even try to hide that, like, that is there. But like, to really just dig and go, like, so how much of that is there? How, like, the
whole movie, in my opinion,
it's every little piece.
And that's the part that I enjoyed about it the most, because regardless of how loose the plot is, the whole heckling of the poor guy and like using him as their toy and, exploiting him essentially in this. And like, and he's not technically poor, but he is.
He's
because
poor to them.
And for a lot of it, I don't see him as being used. He's going along with it. He wants to be a part of that. So he's not being like forced in a lot of cases.
Well, he's being lied to, though. He's going
he's
through
not
it in
there
false
using
pretenses. Like, he thinks that he's one of them, and that's part of their game is, oh no, we're gonna make this guy think that he's on our level, and then we're going to make him know he is not on our level.
It reminds me of that scene where we bring in, is it Rhonda in the Trick or Treat movie, and all these kids are coming, and she has the pumpkins,
okay.
and then they start taking her, and they want to take her down to the thing, and then they start heckling her, and she falls, and she hits her head. It's the exact same bullying
that scene
concept
for a whole movie.
Yeah, it's what it reminds me of. And it's like, and then I mean, in the end of the Trick or Treat, Rhonda gets the upper hand here, don't get me wrong, but like this, that's exactly what it feels like to me. Like, it's the same concept. It's like she thinks that she's invited and that she's liked, and realistically is they're just using her, and that's kind of what they're doing in this. So.
Oh yeah. All right. So that's Infinity Pool.
Yeah.
It's movie club time. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-bow.
And Nick gets to get his picks in now again.
We're back to Nick picks.
I know, right? Coming in hot. Some.
I always feel like I'm gonna say it wrong.
Yeah,
I know.
Coming in hot. Some unwanted Nick picks.
Yeah.
I told it makes me go back. There's a TikTok that I saw where it's like, so I sent this guy a message that said it was a Snapchat that said enjoying my morning coffee, and I got a dick pic in return. And it's just like that. Yeah. Sorry, ladies. My name is Nicholas, and I will take it upon myself to apologize for all men and the fact that us men think that our dicks matter. So
it's not even like they don't even look nice. It's not a photogenic body part in any form, but
it's like,
it definitely isn't photogenic.
It's like if a thumb and a worm had a baby.
It's always sad.
It's always sad. It's always just so sad. But anyway, enough about dicks. So the movie that we will be watching for homework next week is Silent Hill, the original Silent Hill film. We'll be watching. Now, the reason this movie was put on the list was because this month that we will be watching it, a new Silent Hill movie was supposed to come out. From what I'm seeing, it's gotten pushed back a bit. There is no date of release, but it does say it does say 2024. What could have so then I read it could have been leaked that it was supposed to come out in April. It could have also been pushed back, but it went from being that it was supposed to come out like the end of April to it like the date being removed. So it could have been faulty information. Anyway, that's why we're watching this movie. I'm interested to see what everyone thinks of this. I have a huge love. If you're a listener of this podcast in the past, I have a huge love relationship with the Silent Hill universe. So we will be watching this for homework. I believe the first one came out maybe like 2006. So that's the one we're watching. We're not watching the sequel. We're not watching Silent Hill Revelations 3D. That movie is hot dog shit. It is the worst it is literally one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Wow.
But yes, Silent Hill is our homework for next week. It will be a palate cleanser again, in the sense of it's not Infinity Pool.
Cool.
But for Pod of the Dead, I am Nicholas.
I'm Stephanie.
I'm Tasha.
Come back and listen to us, or else.